everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm not used to speaking with a microphone. I'm not used to singing with one either. But, I've learned to do that here. I started attending Collins Church about a year and a half ago, and they were so gracious to welcome me into the praise band. So I'm singing now too, which makes me really happy. So let me get my notes. People who know me know that I'm used to writing speeches, not giving them. So this is new for me. My mother-in-law was 68 when she died on March 28, 2010. Her name was Nanette George. This is her son, my husband, Dave George. In Mary's last moments, I sat with her. I was pregnant with twin girls, her first grandchildren. And there's actually a picture, I think, of that. The two little babies there. That's the ultrasound. We'd already named them, Jilly and Nancy, after my mom, whose name was Nancy, and Angeline Mary, after Dave's mom, who's Mary. Angeline was smaller. The doctors estimated she was about 2 pounds, and Jilly was 5. And there was a problem with the placenta. The umbilical cords didn't go directly in, so something was wrong. And something was wrong with Mary, too. She had fought breast cancer for 19 years, and today she faced her final battle. Dave and I could see that his mom was drowning from the fluid in her lungs. She was scared. And I held her hand, and I tried to describe heaven for her. If you had known me at that time, you would know this was a very strange role for me, because I wasn't a believer. So I was raised Christian in a Methodist church, very strong faith. And in my 20s, I just left. I just didn't feel like I knew who God was or that he was a part of my life. He didn't seem real to me. At this time, I was 38 years old. And the situation was dire. As I held Mary's hand, I struggled hard as I wondered what to say. What could I say? I didn't have any scripture to quote, any really sage words to give her. I felt that I wasn't equipped. So here's what I said to her. Mom, told her, I don't know about heaven firsthand, but I've read about it, and I've heard it's beautiful. There's music everywhere, and people you know are going to greet you when you get there. So you'll see your husband, LC. You'll see your son, Jeff. We'll tell our little girls all about you. They'll know all about your beautiful smile, your wonderful cooking, and your quick wit. And as I spoke to her, baby Angeline moved in my belly. And that was so strange because she only moved when I was around Mary. And so I thought, they have some special connection, and our Angeline's still a fighter because she's still moving, you know. As I spoke with Mary, her eyes softened and she looked at me. She died just moments later at 10 o'clock in a room in the 9th floor at Rex Hospital. In a moment, she slipped away, never to meet her 2 and only grandchildren. That was Monday, the day after Palm Sunday. I was 33 weeks pregnant. The next morning, I had to go back to Rex Hospital. Under doctor's orders, I went there every 2 days to get a monitors put on my belly to take a look at the babies. The Doppler monitor is a sound monitor that they use, and it puts out those really long lines on the paper. I didn't want to make that journey alone, but I had to go by myself because Dave had to go to Virginia to start making funeral arrangements. I didn't have friends to call and ask for help. We were fairly new to the area and no church home to turn to. So I gathered my strength and I went alone. I walked into the hospital's maternity wing, and this was just steps from where Dave's mom had died just 12 hours prior. I went to the room where women go when they're in labor, and it looks a lot like an emergency room. There are all these different bays with the curtains and the metal rings at the top that make that noise when you close them. The nurse put the 2 Dopplers on my belly and located each twin's heartbeat. Everything looked good. "There they are," she said with a smile. "Do you need anything?" "No," I told her. "Good," she said. "I'll be back in 15 minutes. And as she left, I heard the sound of those metal curtain rings. And then something happened that I'll never forget, and which brought me here tonight to share this story with you. I saw my mother-in-law in the corner of the room. I was going to say that again, but I think all of you heard me. I saw her in the corner. Now, I didn't see her like I see all of you. I saw a faint vision of her, but it was clear who she was. And in life, mostly, I had known her without hair, because she had had so many chemo treatments. But she had a full head of hair. It was the same color as my husband Dave's hair. But this time, she had this beautiful black streak that looked like a lightning bolt that went through her hair. Her glasses were gone. And I just giggled spontaneously. I was so delighted to see her, and we'd been through so much with her. And she looked great. And I said without thinking, "What are you doing here? Aren't you in training to be an angel?" And I was smiling. She didn't make any expression. But she held up her arms. And the whole time I knew Mary, she never had any use of this arm. Her right arm had been damaged in a surgery, so it hung limp and swollen and very large. It was 3 times the size of her other arm, and she had to lift it to carry it. So she carried it around and moved it when she needed to move it. She held up both of her arms like this and moved her hands back and forth. And then she was gone. Well, she moved them back and forth, and then she crossed her arms. And then she was gone. Got to skip ahead here a little. I got to talking. Wow, I got a lot covered here. So as you can imagine, seeing something like this, I was so happy for her. She was made whole again. And I thought, what an incredible thing, and what an incredible thing to see. And that was pretty much what I thought until I got in the car to go home from the hospital. And I thought, I can't share this with anybody, because they're going to think I'm crazy, for one thing. And I've already just lost mother-in-law. We'd been through some traumatic things. I was pregnant with twins. I wasn't allowed to take any kind of medications. Hadn't had a drink in probably 3 years, you know. I couldn't have been more sober. But I really was worried that if I shared it with people, they would think something was wrong with me, and that I would spend time with a psychiatrist when I should be with my husband, who was planning a funeral for his mother. So I didn't tell anybody. There we go. The next day, the doctor shared with us his growing concern about baby Angeline. She was small, and she really wasn't getting any bigger. And he put in an order for me to deliver her and Jillian, our other little girl, just 5 days later, on Easter Monday. I kept my secret about Dave's mom all through the next days, through the visitation on Thursday night, through the funeral on Friday. Family of ours traveled from miles away to be with us. They knew what we must be going through. And while they knew I wasn't a devout Christian, they prayed with us and they prayed for us. So we had a lot of people sort of coming together to pray for us during this time. On Easter Monday, Dave and I traveled to the hospital to welcome our twin baby girls. I went to the same maternity ante unit, and the nurse put the Dopplers on my belly, and she couldn't find Angeline's heartbeat. Later, the doctor brought in a portable ultrasound, and she couldn't find Angeline's heartbeat either. Later, a nurse wheeled me into a room with a large screen, and an ultrasound technician moved a wand across my belly. Dave and I looked at the screen, just searching for any sign of hope, any sign that we could see a heartbeat on this big, perfect, high-resolution screen. There, Jillian, she's strong and healthy. The heartbeat looks good, he said to us. We looked at the screen, and then he looked at us, and he said, I'm afraid I don't have good news for you. I looked at my husband. He didn't say a word, but I knew what he was thinking. How can this be? How can we've lost so much in 1 week? So, after the ultrasound technician said to me, I'm afraid I don't have good news for you. In a flash of memory, I remembered Dave's mom, and this time I remembered when she crossed her arms. And I realized that she was sending me a message. What an amazing message. And I turned to Dave, and I said, Dave, it's okay. I know where she is. And he looked a little confused, but he went with it. And the next few hours were a blur. The specialist ordered me to carry Jillian to full term, said that I would take both babies home in my belly and go as far as I could with Jilly. And this was very scary for me. His rationale was that she'd have a better chance at life if I were closer to full term, and he assured me it was the safest course of action, both of us, Dave and I. He admitted me to the hospital for monitoring, and I sent Dave home. He'd been at the hospital for 2 weeks now, pretty much, just waiting for his mother to die. And I had a full team of nurses at my disposal. I mean, I was in the room with one of the best teams in the country for women in my situation. So the nurses would use the Doppler every 2 hours to monitor the little Jillian. And each time, the nurse said she sounded fine. Meanwhile, my family, and I didn't know this until later, my family, my friends, my coworkers had all gathered in different places to pray and to talk with one another and to share the story. And I later heard about prayers around water coolers and prayers at the table and prayers over the phone with long-distance family. And every single person kept saying, they have to deliver the baby now. It's time. We can't wait any longer. What if Jillian doesn't survive? And it's the question we all were asking. I didn't pray because at that point I really wasn't sure how to do that and not feel like an imposter. But I had packed a book that my husband had given me at Christmas time. It's Max Lucado's, also Max Lucado's Fearless. I don't know if you're familiar with the book. And I opened it up one night, and I read about Jesus in the boat with the disciples in the storm. And in that book, Max Lucado reminds us that the one statement Jesus made more than any other was this: don't be afraid. And in the boat, when Jesus asked the disciples, why are you fearful, O you of little faith? From Matthew 8:26. I was fearful. I was afraid of losing our little. On my third night at the hospital, at 10 o'clock, a nurse walked in and put another Doppler on my belly in what now had become a routine kind of thing for me. The nurse situated the monitor, found Jillian's heartbeat, and asked me if I needed anything, and she started to leave. And then she turned around, and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "The nurses draw straws every night to see who gets to be with you. And I was startled. I said, why would they want to be with me? Why would anybody want to be with a mother who just lost a baby?" And she said to me, "Because you're happier than a lot of the women in this unit that are holding their babies." And I looked at her and said, "I have faith. I know that God has a plan for our little Angeline, and I know she's okay." It felt so strange to say those words. I didn't know enough about faith to talk about it. I didn't tell her that I'd seen Mary at the Auntie unit, that she had delivered the most important message I may have ever received in my life, that Mary was holding our little Angeline in heaven right now. That same nurse noticed an irregularity in our Jillian's heartbeat that night. She ordered the doctor to the hospital, and she came right away. And the next day, I delivered the twins. These are our little Angeline's feet. She was 2 pounds. I held each of her perfectly formed fingers and toes, one by one. I kissed her forehead, and I told her I loved her. It was very special having that time with her. My parents got to wash Angeline before she was clothed in the special garments that volunteers knit for babies in her situation. She was beautiful. So our Jilly, as you can see with Dave here, was 5 pounds 4 ounces, small but healthy. She spent just 8 days in the neonatal intensive care unit. Really, a very short time. It's hard to see through my tears. And then, of course, the roller coaster of parenting began. But that nurse saved our Jilly's life. And she's here tonight. And her name is Elle Goodman, and she's sitting back there in the 3rd row from the back. I doubt she'll stand up, but she's wiping her eyes. Elle's hearing this story for the first time tonight, too. So 10 months later, we found out we were expecting little Delia, and this is all of us today. She was happy, healthy, and full term. And this year, Jilly will be 5 years old. And I wanted to share this story with you tonight because this was a difficult storm for Dave and I. And we know what it feels like to be afraid in the storm. I hope that you will tune your senses to God's messages as well, because He's sending you messages all the time. Don't be afraid. God is alive, He is real, and He loves to provide us with hope and comfort. This is a God I didn't know before I saw Mary in the corner. He is our shelter in the storm. Thank you very much for letting me share my story and for your patience with me, and thank you for being here.